Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rick Smooth, and I am here at the Pro Wrestling Archives to give you the top 10 female managers of all time in the sport of professional wrestling. And we're going to go right down this list. We're going to get started right now. Number 10 of all time. I'm going to give it to Kimono Wanalea in ECW. And I'm going to give it to her because anytime you ever see her with Raven, it always gives Raven an extra element to his character and his appearance and his whole vibe. I think she did a really good job and doesn't get enough credit for that. Um, Going right down the list, number 9, I'm going to give it to Lita. And the reason why Lita is even on this list is because of her work with the Hardy Boys. I saw her in ECW as Miss Congeniality. We used to see her all the time, and she was one of my favorites back then. But she really got over in the WWE and had a really good career and a good run. Um, we're going to give it to her. You know, I didn't want to put her on the list originally, but because of the fact that she was a great manager, she has to be on the list. I wanted, yeah, she would obviously be on my list of top 10 female wrestlers of all time, no doubt about it. But when I think of Lita, I don't always think about her as a manager because her work in the ring is pretty good. Number 8, going down the list, Deborah McMichael. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but in WCW, she was a little more reserved. And then when she came over to the WWE and was with Jeff Jarrett, she was really getting over at that time and was super hot. So I give that to Deborah McMichael. Going right down the list, number 7, another ECW gal, Beulah McGillicuddy. Absolutely had a great run in ECW. Definitely a legend in ECW. And, you know, there's not much more to really say besides the fact that she almost had kind of like a Miss Elizabeth feel where, you know, she had this love story with Tommy Dreamer going, but it wasn't, you know, as what's the word I'm looking for? Old fashioned as the Randy Savage Miss Elizabeth thing. It was a little more 90s, so that was cool. Um, Number 6, going down the list, one of my favorite girls in the history of pro wrestling. Mad shout outs to Miss Jacqueline. Miss Jacqueline, I'm always trying to bump you up on these lists, if you know what I'm saying. And every time I try to, somebody comes along and, you know, the reason why Miss Jacqueline is at number 6 is because the first 5 on this list are irreplaceable when it comes to uh, their contributions to the sport of pro wrestling. Otherwise, Miss Jacqueline, no doubt about it, you would be in my top, you know, 2 or 3, if you know what I'm saying. Maybe 1. But that's just me. My name's Rick Smooth. 215-805-1652. Sable, uh, you know, I'm gonna give her number 5. Some people are gonna argue with me about that, but when it really comes down to it, Sable got over in a big way with that swimsuit competition at the Slammies, and I remember when all that happened, and then the Playboy stuff, and you know, she could have lasted a lot longer with that run though. I don't know what happened backstage, but a lot of shit went down. So whatever. Number 4, I'm gonna give it to an ECW girl who really absolutely came into her own and became one of the greatest female managers in the history of pro wrestling, and that's Francine. Francine deserves it. She was on a certain level back then with the franchise as a manager. They went really well together and had a really good chemistry, and then the triple threat. And then she went on to do stuff with Tommy Dreamer as well and Just Incredible. That whole thing that she did was a pretty legendary run for a manager. Um, Number 3, going down the list, we got Sunny, and I don't know what else to say right now about her, but you know, I'm sure our paths will cross one day, and if so, you know, she can, you know, holler. So number 2, this was a tough one between 1 and 2, and I'm gonna give you 2 first. All right. Number 2 on the top 10 female managers of all time, I'm going to give it to Miss Elizabeth because her story with Randy Savage was absolutely believable. When those two would get together and they would do their thing, it was a love story. It was something that you know, it wasn't my thing at the time. I was a 5 or 6 year old kid watching this stuff unfold. But when you look back on it 20 years later or whatever, you know, I think it's 30 years now since like 1990. So 91 was the match made in heaven. So, you know, 29 years later, we're still talking about it. And I think Miss Elizabeth over time definitely had a run that's definitely, you know, has to be spoken about when it comes to female managers. Number one on the top 10 female managers of all time here at the Pro Wrestling Archives, it goes to none other than sensational Sherry Martel. And she's another one. She evolved so much and did so many different things in wrestling for so long that she is absolutely a legend in the sport of professional wrestling. We miss her. I love watching her YouTube shoot interviews, and we just want to say thanks to Sherry Martel for all the work that she's done. Rest in peace. So that's all I got to say here at the top 10 female managers of all time, Pro Wrestling Archives YouTube podcast. I'm here. My name's Rick Smooth, and I'm here to say good night.